8. Michael and Melissa Burnett. 22-year-old Clarissa Winchester was 7 months pregnant when she vanished from her South Carolina home in 2022. Her parents began to worry when they couldn't reach her or the father of her unborn child, 21-year-old Tyler Wilkins. They went to Wilkins' house, but he refused to speak with them, so they dialed 911. Police soon discovered that Clarissa had been kidnapped and brutally bludgeoned to death at the home of Wilkins' relatives, Michael and Melissa Burnett. At some point during the ordeal, she gave birth, and her infant son Grayson also lost his life. Greenville County prosecutors charged Wilkins with Clarissa's murder and in connection to the death of his son, who perished from neglect. They believe the victim spent hours begging for her life while her estranged partner mercilessly beat the life out of her. Authorities also arrested the Burnetts, who were allegedly in the house during the murder and heard Clarissa's anguished pleas for help. They're accusing the couple of failing to dial 911 or take any other action to defend, protect, or try to save Clarissa when they knew her life was in danger. The pair were charged with misprision of a felony, which is when someone is aware that another person committed a felony and fails to notify law enforcement. Christopher Wilkins is also under investigation for the disappearance of his former girlfriend, 19-year-old Jordan Nebling, who went missing in 2020. Nebling's stepmother, Mary Tucker, told Fox Carolina that the young woman's car broke down and she called Wilkins for a ride. Wilkins allegedly told Tucker that Nebling walked away from him after he came to get her and that he had no idea where she went. Nobody's seen her since. 7. Scott Peterson. On Valentine's Day 2018, 19-year-old Nicholas Cruz opened fire on students and staff at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida. He killed 17 people and injured 17 others. Cruz received 34 life sentences, but he's not the only person authorities blamed for the needless tragedy. The only armed officer on duty, 56-year-old Broward County Sheriff's Deputy Scott Peterson, stood outside the school throughout the entire shooting, apparently doing nothing to stop the mayhem that was going on inside. Surveillance footage from during the attack shows Peterson leaning against a wall in the courtyard, taking no action to investigate the source of the gunshots. He was charged with 7 counts of neglecting a child, 3 counts of culpable negligence, and 1 count of perjury. Prosecutors claim that Peterson was the legal caregiver for the school's 3,200 students that day, and that he could have done a lot more to protect them. If they succeed in proving it to a jury, he could spend most or all of his remaining years in prison. Peterson maintained his innocence in an interview with Men's Health journalist Eric Barton, claiming that it all happened so fast and that he didn't realize shots were being fired until well into the ordeal. He also said that he couldn't tell where the shots were coming from or that they were coming from inside the school. His trial is scheduled for late February 2023. 6. Jennifer Elizabeth Ferguson. Just days after Thanksgiving in 2022, a hospice nurse found 78-year-old James Edward Kurtz deceased in his Rowan County, North Carolina home. After noticing that Kurtz had been dead long enough to start decomposing, she called the local sheriff's department. The nurse told investigators that the senior citizen's live-in girlfriend, 46-year-old Jennifer Elizabeth Ferguson, claimed that she'd been at home with Kurtz since the nurse's last visit. Authorities carried out a search warrant on the home and determined that Ferguson should have known that Kurtz was dead and had a responsibility to notify law enforcement. Deputies found suspicious evidence at the scene, according to a search warrant, including a pill that was still in Kurtz's mouth. Ferguson claimed she had no idea her partner was dead, but investigators didn't buy it. She was charged with felony failure to report a death. Several of Kurtz's relatives, including his son Tony and his estranged wife Linda, told Channel 9's Hannah Goetz that they'd been suspicious of Ferguson ever since James started dating her a few years earlier. They said they began to worry even more when Kurtz was sent home with Ferguson while in hospice care during his battle with cancer. Tony described his father's living conditions as hell-like. Ferguson was supposed to be his caregiver, but Tony claimed that he often found his father unclothed on a plastic mattress. But he respected his dad's wishes to stay with Ferguson. In the days leading up to the discovery of Kurtz's body, Tony called to check on him, but Ferguson allegedly told him that his father was doing fine. Police believe that Kurtz was already dead. In an interview with Channel 9, Ferguson maintained her innocence and said that she plans to fight the charge in court. 5. Tempe Police Trio. While responding to a domestic disturbance call in Tempe, Arizona, early one morning in 2022, 3 police officers encountered a distressed homeless man named Sean Bickings. They were talking to him and checking their database to see if he had any arrest warrants when he ran into Tempe Town Lake and started swimming away. The troubled 34-year-old soon began to panic and yelled to the officers, saying he was drowning. Disturbing body cam footage revealed that the officers continued talking with Bickings while he pleaded for help, but that nobody tried to save him. One officer could be heard saying, "I'm not jumping in after you." The police told Bickings to swim to a nearby pylon, but he said he was unable to. Bickings died, leaving a big question mark on why the officers simply stood there when he was clearly in danger. The Tempe Officers Association released a statement clarifying that Tempe police officers don't receive water rescue training and that the department lacks the proper equipment for rescuing drowning victims. According to the local statement, the responding officers called the local fire department, which is standard protocol in these types of emergencies. The trio were put on paid administrative leave, while the Tempe Police Department and several other law enforcement agencies investigate the matter, which has left a lot of people understandably upset. They haven't been charged in connection with the case, and there haven't been any updates since mid-2022. The status of the case is unclear. 4. Diana Kojo and Christopher Palmita. Most parents are quick to panic when they can't find their child, often to the point where police tell them that they're overreacting and that it's too soon to treat the child's disappearance as a missing persons case. But the exact opposite happened in Cornelius, North Carolina in 2022, when a young girl's mother and stepfather allegedly waited 3 weeks to tell her school that she went missing. The middle schooler was last seen at home the day before Thanksgiving, but staff members claimed that her mother, 37-year-old Diana Chaudry, failed to inform them of her disappearance until December 15th. When she finally made the report, the Cornelius Police Department, the State Bureau of Investigation, and the FBI were all quick to get involved in the search for the missing girl. Kojo and her husband, 60-year-old Christopher Palmita, were charged with failure to report the disappearance of a child to law enforcement. Under North Carolina law, parents and guardians are required to report a child's disappearance within a reasonable time. According to an affidavit, Kojo noticed that her daughter was missing while Palmita was out of town. 3 days later, she asked Palmita if he'd seen the girl, and he reportedly asked her the same question. Kojo allegedly told detectives that she waited 3 weeks to report her daughter's disappearance because she was worried that doing so might start a conflict with her husband. In the meantime, law enforcement continues to search for Kojo missing daughter and is encouraging the public to bring as much awareness to the case as possible. 3. Kevin Lee and Becca Phillips. In late 2020, emergency responders found 23-year-old Shane Herseth unresponsive in his vehicle on a roadside in Colfax, North Dakota. It was immediately clear that he'd been dead for some time. An autopsy concluded that he'd fatally overdosed on fentanyl and methamphetamine. One of the last people Shane was seen with, 28-year-old Becca Phillips, reportedly told a Richard County deputy that they'd driven to the home of 57-year-old Kevin Stacy Lee the day before Shane's death. Shane stayed in his car while Becca went inside, and while it's unclear what happened between then and the next morning, she awoke to Kevin telling her that he thought Shane was dead. According to court documents, Becca was surprised to learn that Shane overdosed because she didn't think he was using drugs that night. She reportedly claimed that after she confirmed he was dead, Kevin said he would move Shane's body so they wouldn't have to involve law enforcement. At the time, Kevin was already facing 11 felony and misdemeanor charges in unrelated cases, including methamphetamine possession and multiple theft counts. Becca was facing 5 felony and misdemeanor counts in a neighboring county, including burglary, theft, and fleeing a peace officer. It could explain why she and Kevin wanted to avoid calling the cops about Shane's death, but in failing to do so, they caught even more charges. They were both charged with failing to report a death, and Kevin faced an additional charge of willful disturbance of a dead body. Under North Dakota law, both crimes are misdemeanors that carry possible jail sentences ranging between 30 and 360 days or fines between $1,500 and $3,000 in lieu of prison time. All things considered, the charges relating to Shane's death were probably the least of Phillips and Lee's problems compared to the more serious crimes they were accused of. The outcomes of their cases are unclear, but hopefully the experience was a lesson learned and enough to motivate the defendants to get their lives on track. 2. Nadia Chaudry. When it comes to teaching kids right from wrong and correcting bad behavior, an eye for an eye usually isn't the best way to get a point across. A teacher at the Goddard School in Woodbridge, Virginia, apparently missed that page in her handbook when a student bit her colleague in 2014. Instead of disciplining the student appropriately, 24-year-old Teresa Brown allegedly returned the gesture. A staff member who witnessed the bizarre incident reported it to Nadia Chaudry, who was a member of management and the daughter of the school's owners. Under state law, Chaudry was a mandated reporter, which meant that she was required to tell authorities about what happened, but she didn't, and she was later accused of telling at least one witness not to tell police or child protective services about the incident. An anonymous caller reported the situation to CPS, sparking a police investigation into the matter. Authorities charged Teresa Brown with assault and battery, and they charged Chaudry with failing to report abuse or neglect. At the time, Chaudry was in the process of taking over the school from her parents. While it's unclear how her case played out, her parents issued a statement shortly after her arrest, clarifying that Nadia was removed from her position and that Brown was fired. Brown was initially released on bond after her arrest, but she was sent to jail after failing to appear in court and violating probation in an unrelated case. She escaped from custody the following year after complaining of pain and being taken to the hospital. Police captured her the next day and took her back to jail. A new pair of owners took over the Goddard School following Brown and Chaudry's arrests. Since then, the school has managed to avoid any more controversies and has re-established a good reputation, indicating that the biting incident was an isolated case. 1. Robert Rulander. 80-year-old Kathleen Rulander's family became concerned when they stopped hearing from her at the end of 2022. On New Year's Day, the senior citizen's granddaughter called the police and asked them to conduct a welfare check at the home Rulander shared with her son, 53-year-old Robert, in Kojo, Florida. The granddaughter told the dispatcher that she'd tried to visit her grandmother but that Robert wouldn't let her in the house. When police visited the residence, Robert told them that his mother had left weeks earlier with plans to travel to New York. The responding officers accepted his explanation and left the scene, but they returned a little while later after another of Kathleen's grandkids called and requested a welfare check. This time, the caller said that they tried to phone Kathleen, but Robert answered and said that she was napping. During their second visit, a man who lived in a shed on the property told officers that he believed Kathleen was dead inside the home. According to an arrest affidavit, he said that Kathleen used a machine to help her breathe, but that he hadn't heard it running in a while. He also said that the door to the home was always kept open until about a month earlier, when it was suddenly closed all the time. Police found Kathleen deceased in her bed in what appeared to be a state of neglect. Her room was covered in filth, while Robert's room appeared to be clean and organized, and the home had no running water. Robert was charged with failure to report a death and neglect of an elderly or disabled person. His case is ongoing. Thanks for watching. If you saw a couple arguing in public and it seemed like things were about to get violent, would you intervene directly, flag down help, or stay out of it? If you've ever been in a situation like this, how did you react? Let us know in the comments below and don't forget to subscribe. See you next time. Bye.